sitting there, it's again so tranquil, and you're looking over all these tombstones, and it's a heavy burden that he has, and it's a heavy burden that every commander-in-chief has, and I think that very much sank in. I mean, it's more than running the biggest company in the world. I mean, you really have incredible moral responsibility, and he fully understands that. He fully understands that.
And he's fully capable.
He is. He's going to do an unbelievable job. He's going to do an unbelievable job.
He's already started working. I mean, on day one, he was in the Oval Office working.
Well, how long have you known him, right? I mean, that's who the man is. He's a worker. And he spent all day today working. He's over at Langley at CIA today. He signed already some very big orders. Mattis has already been approved. And those are some very, very big things. But my father's a worker, and he's going to get to work. And there's so many things that he's passionate about. I mean, his passion was the reason that he did this.
Well, his passion is, I believe, what sold him to the American people.
No question.
And but let's talk about yesterday, for that moment, that very proud moment, when your family walked out. And when you walked out and looked out at all of the people out there waiting for your dad to be sworn in as President of the United States, what did you see and what did you think? And did you feel anything looking at your siblings, at Ivanka and Donnie Jr. and Tiffany? And what was it like?
Well, you know, afterward, I saw a video of myself, and I was mouthing, "This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable." I mean, you look out at a sea of millions of people, but it honestly hit before that when you walk down the hallway out of the Capitol,
right,
down the stairs, and you pass the honor guard, and these are men and women in uniform, and they're at attention, and you're walking through almost a sea of them lined up on the way down those stairs. It was so powerful, and then you come out this door, and it's just massive. I mean, it's massive. You see the Washington Monument, you know, a mile or two down, and all there is a sea of people, and it's a sight. You know, that's a 60-second period of time from the time you start that walk to the time you get to your seat. That's a sight that I will never forget as long as I live. It was truly an unbelievable moment.
And as you walked, I mean, all of us were looking at you and looking, you know, at your sister and looking at your dad. Do you think that everyone else felt that same awe and that sense of responsibility? And was there elation, or was there a somber moment? What was it?
It has to be somber.
Yeah.
It has to be somber.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. You sit up there with the Chief Justices of the Supreme Court. You sit up there with so many senators and congressmen, and I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable, that sight. And you know, you're sitting so high, and you have the Capitol building, and you have the military bands, and they're playing, and the way it's orchestrated, and you'd hear the reverberation of the sound of the speeches as it went down the mall, because the distance is so great that you would say something, but it would take several seconds before you heard it get to the end of the mall. I mean, that's how big this event is, and there's really nothing like it anywhere in the world, and it was so elegantly done, and my father hit it out of the park. His speech was amazing.
So many presidents have come in with a part of the country opposed to the way they are and what they think and what they stand for. What is your dad going to do as he fights to bring America together, just as he said yesterday in his speech? What does he have to do, you think, to bring this country together?
Well, he's always been a unifier. I've always known him to be an amazing unifier. And there's no question that this country is divided. And it's no question that this country has, quite frankly, been divided for a very, very long time. And I think you're really seeing it more so than ever right now. People want jobs back. They want security back. People don't want ISIS running around this country. They don't want bombs going off at marathons. They don't want our nightclubs getting shot up. You know, people want great education. They want jobs. They want manufacturing. They want a great quality of life. They want great health care. Right? That's what we all want. I mean, regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, we're all Americans. We all bleed the same color of blood. We're all patriots. We all love this country. People want the same thing: security, fiscal responsibility, education, a great family environment, security. I mean, just so many things.
It's all the same.
And he'll deliver that. He will deliver that. And by the way, he has a better ability to deliver that than I think any president before him. And he's going to do an unbelievable job. You just watch. He's going to do a great job.
The fact that the American people elected him as an outsider, not just someone who never ran for office, but never worked in government, I think already says that the American people believe. But I want to get, before we finish, I want to get to something kind of fun. What's it like in the White House?
It's incredible, honestly.
Is it?
I think I pictured something.
Have you ever been in the White House before?
So I lived in Washington, D.C. I went to Georgetown University, and
well, you didn't hang out at the White House, did you?
Of course I did. But I passed,
you did or did not?
Of course I did not. But I passed it a million times, and I expected it to be. I think it's bigger than I expected it to be.
Yeah, it's bigger.
It's massive. I mean, it's very big, and
where do you sleep in the White House? Do you get to sleep anywhere?
We do. We're staying there right now, but it's truly beautiful. I mean, the people that are there are incredible. They're great patriots. They're great, incredibly inspirational. They take so much pride in what they do. It is so manicured. It is so beautiful, and I think it represents the best of America, and it's a great honor. It's truly a great honor.
Will, like the Lincoln bedroom, have you seen it?
I have.
For the first time?
It's a sight to see. It's a sight to see.
Do you think that the Justice viewers can see the Lincoln bedroom one of these days?
I don't know. We'll have to get you over there at some point.
Is that a yes?
I think we can sneak you in, right?
We'll go right through the front door.
You wouldn't mind that, would you?
Not at all.
I think you would like that.
And you know what? With this administration, we won't have to pay.
That's right. That's right.
Eric Trump, thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
And I will have more from my interview with Eric Trump on a special Sunday edition of Justice tomorrow night. So it's day one. The first family is getting to know Washington, and the president is taking aim at the media. Joining me now to talk about that and more is Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. All right, good evening, Doug.
Good evening, Jeanine.
Good to see you.
Good.
All right, Doug. All right, day one. It seems that both the president and Sean Spicer are not pulling back.
Right.
The president at the CIA today, and let me just set this up a little bit.
Please.
It appears that not only was there some information that was inaccurate, to use, I think the softest term I could use, saying that, they had removed the bust of Martin Luther King, which was not true. But also there was a discussion regarding the number of people who attended the inauguration. Let's start with the bust of Martin Luther King.
Sure.
That was wrong. That was mainstream media, Time magazine reporter.
Sure.
I mean, do you blame the president?
No.
Shouldn't he shoot back?
On that, he has to clarify the record. There are implications, both political, moral, and social, for that alleged act, which didn't happen. I'm glad that Sean Spicer and the president clarified what really happened.
Okay, so they were wrong, president right. No doubt about it. Let's move
no
on.
doubt.
Okay, good. Number two. Now, all of this discussion about the fact that, or the allegation that the number of people who showed up for Donald Trump's inauguration was nothing like the number of people who showed up for Barack Obama's. The complaint that the administration has right now is that, number one, that's not accurate. Number two, that when Obama was inaugurated, they didn't need tickets, there weren't fences, there wasn't security, and these pictures were taken at different times, earlier, from a different angle. And so, all of the media already starting with the president. Can you blame him for pushing back and Sean Spicer?
I can't blame him for doing that, but I think he needs to pick his punches. This is not the way. Why? Because he has to bring the country together again, as Eric Trump said, and to take them on over crowd size, which is a transitory and, frankly, I think trivial issue, was a mistake. Clarifying the record is one thing. Starting to fight about crowd size, a very different thing. I would worry about unity and leading, not crowd size.
So what's the difference between clarifying the record and fighting about it? They clarified the record. They said you're wrong. They said that they pointed out all of the differences on why the press was inaccurate.
I would tell you, Sean,
you want to call it fighting, I'll call it clarifying.
Call it what you will. I heard what Sean Spicer said. If I was working in the White House, as I did for 6 years, I would have told him, tone it down. Don't make a big fight out of it. Clarify, go on, and let's talk about the issues.
All right, Doug, and I respect you and I love you.
do.
Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What about setting a tone. You're not going to play political games. If you want to unify the country, let's agree on truth and reality. Isn't that one way to level the playing field as opposed to let's make nice and pick our fights? Isn't it better, instead of saying let's pick our fights, saying let's all speak the truth?
Well, I will say this. The tone you just used, Judge, is exactly right. Sean Spicer was more hostile, divisive. We're a divided country, as Eric Trump said. I want to concentrate, if I were the Trump administration, on steps to bring people together, including, yes, the media, even the bad media, and they are oftentimes very bad, as you pointed out. But I think a message in the tone that Eric Trump used, that you just used, is more appropriate than the way Sean Spicer was talking.
All right. Doug Schoen, always good to see you on Justice. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
All right. And David Avella and Marianne Marsh still on deck tonight. But next, protesters out in force against the new president. But they didn't count on my old friend, the bikers, for Trump. I'm joined live by the founder of the motorcycle group with more on how they took on the protesters. Then I hit the streets here in the nation's capital just hours after the new president was sworn in. Back in a moment as Justice rolls on. Welcome back to Justice. Protesters flooded Washington today, as well as other major cities across the country and the world, in an effort to delegitimize President Trump and the new administration. But there were some groups of Trump supporters who were determined not to let it happen. I spent part of the day with Bikers for Trump, a group I'm quite familiar with. I even rode with them in a counter-protest march at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland last year. But the group was here in Washington today to counteract the protesters. Chris Cox runs Bikers for Trump and is here with me in D.C. All right, Chris, thanks for being with us. You got a permit today to be in a park in D.C. And what was the point of your being here in D.C.?
Well, we had Bishop Dwight Pate from Louisiana come in, and we had a Biker for Christ service, and we were talking about how to bring this country together, dealing with race relations. And during that, we had a bunch of protesters acting up, and we actually had to engage with several of them as a result of their aggressive nature. And during that, engaging with them, I engaged the crowd. I said, is anybody here being paid by George Soros? Raise your hand. All 15 of the guys with the ski mask on raised their hand.
All right. Well, now, did you expect, when you got the permit and when you came in with your team, that there would be any confrontations between you and any of the protesters? Not
at all. After the role we played in Cleveland, it was very smooth sailing, and I anticipated the same thing in Washington. But to my dismay, we had a lot of activity there. We actually engaged over 5 different protesters, and they definitely came out on the short end of the stick. Judge.
Okay, well, did anybody get arrested here?
No, after these engagements, one guy had his earring knocked right out of his nose after spitting and throwing a middle finger in a biker's face, and the police talked to him, and later he was said, okay, thank you, sir.
But have you ever seen protesters like this before?
They can't, no, and I would even ask him, well, what are you protesting about? I say, ma'am, what rights do you not have?
You're talking about the women's protests today.
The women's that were protesting. I said, what rights do you not have? Because Bikers for Trump will help you get those rights. Explain to us what it is that you don't have. They couldn't explain to me anything. They said that they were trying to protect rights that they might lose. And so, and another thing, what about the right of parental guidance? Okay, they had young children out there that were walking around with these women, and there were signs that were saying F Trump. They were suggestive sexual signs of drawings.
Yeah, no, I was in that protest, and we're going to show a lot of that tomorrow night. Yeah. But there was a lot of vulgarity, a lot of threats, a lot of cursing. You experienced the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of name calling. We were spit on, and it was just really not very much of a class act there, and it was pretty embarrassing for the country, if you ask me. Well,
but at the end, I mean, did you accomplish what you came here to accomplish?
We did. We were the flip side of the coin. There were 90 permits given, and we were the only pro-Trump permit there today. And along with Jan Morgan and Al Bartarasso, we represented Donald Trump and all the Trump supporters that came together collectively to celebrate his inauguration, and we were very successful as far as I'm concerned. We're used to being outnumbered, Judge. It doesn't bother us. The bikers don't back down. We certainly aren't going to start the fight, but we're there to support Donald Trump. And we'll be there in the future, too. And you can count on us being a sweet spot for the Republican Party for many years to come. We are up to 250,000 members, and by another 3 months, we'll have 500,000 members. And we are a political phenomenon as a result of Donald Trump himself being a political phenomenon.
Well, you know what's interesting? I wonder how the parties will change and whether or not it is even they will even be the same as we go forward. But anyway, Chris Cox and the bikers, I'm sure that Donald Trump and his family thanks you for all the work that you've done. Thanks for being with us. All right.
Thank you.
All right. And actor Jon Voight is on deck, plus street justice from along the inaugural parade route. And next, our first political panel of the new administration, and it's a great one. GOPAC Chair David Avella, Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh, fired up, ready to go at it with me. Justice rolls on in a moment. Don't move.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Lauren Green. Mexican drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman pleading not guilty in a New York courtroom. He's accused of running one of the world's biggest drug trafficking operations. He's being held without bail, prosecutors agreeing not to seek the death penalty as a condition of his extradition from Mexico. Well, the condition of our former President George H.W. Bush continues to improve. He was admitted to a hospital to treat pneumonia and should be able to head home in a few days. The condition for his wife, Barbara, also improving. She's in the hospital to treat a cough and may be discharged tomorrow. Nearly $100 million was hauled in to help underwrite the inaugural celebration for President Trump. The record haul surpasses the $53 million collected by President Obama from private sources in 2009. Most money coming after the election from private donors. I'm Lauren Green. Now back to Justice with Judge Jeanine.
We have a new president. We have protesters in the street. But some things never change. We have a great political panel here to talk about the new regime. David Avella is the chairman of GOPAC and a Republican strategist. He's here with me in Washington. And from Boston, we're joined by principal at the Dewey Square Group and Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh. Thank you both for being with me here tonight. All right,
hey,
so
Judge.
Here we are, new administration. So let's talk about the fact that, we've got the president. He's already done some work. I'll start with you, Marianne. He started to repeal parts of Obamacare. What say you about that?
Well, obviously, I'm opposed to that, but I think what you're going to see from Donald Trump, you already saw at the end of this week, the beginning of next week, a flurry of executive orders to try to stop everything Barack Obama's done on health care, on immigration, oil and gas measures, a whole host of other things. And that's not a surprise given how he campaigned. What is surprising to me is one executive order he's already done, which would stop the Federal Home Administration's insurance premium cut that had been on the books that would actually affect 40,000 people from actually having the opportunity to buy a home. That to me is not only surprising because it hurts the very people who voted for Trump. How do you get down in the weeds this early on something like that, which you never heard about during the campaign?
Change that Barack Obama did, and it wasn't the concern a destabilization of mortgages, David?
I believe that is correct. But what you've seen in these last 48 hours is two things. One, he is very much going to focus on, as Marianne correctly said, undoing what has happened over the last 8 years, which is exactly why he got elected. And he is going to focus on economic things. When you see things like Obamacare, when you see him putting a freeze on all new federal regulations have to be reviewed by someone in his administration. You saw also the security side of what he's going to do. He went out to the CIA today. He signed the waiver to get Mattis immediately in as Secretary of Defense after the Senate confirmed him. He's going to do what he said he was going to do, which is economic and personal security.
Amazing. A president who says what he means, it means what he says.
But let me also add one other thing that he's done. In the last 2 days, we've had people protest freely and openly in this country. And no one's First Amendment got hurt. No one's going to get scapegoated. No one had anything said they couldn't protest. In fact, actually, Judge, the only thing people got taken away was their Second Amendment by people who came here to D.C. because gun laws didn't allow them to bring a gun in.
Marianne, let me ask you something. I was in the middle of those protests, and I don't know whether we'll show it tonight or tomorrow night, But one of the things, and Chris Cox, interestingly, the guest who was here a little earlier, said the same thing that I heard, and that was, well, they haven't really lost anything, but they're worried about losing something. It's almost as though, you know, there's nothing in particular we want, but we just want to make sure we don't lose anything. Is that your sense of what this was about, this protest?
I think there was a broader... I think a lot of people brought a lot of concerns to these protests, which you have to admit were remarkable today, the millions of people who turned out across the country and around the world to protest. Much of it, I think, had to do with the words of Donald Trump. And now he's put his hand on the Bible yesterday. He's taken office, and they want to make sure that the things they care about when it comes to women's health, when it comes to civil rights, rights for gays and lesbians go down, you know, social justice, civil rights, voting rights, all of those things don't get repealed as well. So just as he's issuing executive orders to try to stop things that Barack Obama has done in the last 8 years, in the last few weeks, people don't want the rights that they have fought so hard for many, many decades to be rolled back too. And when you listen to Donald Trump during the campaign, people are rightfully concerned about it. I would just say this.
But you know what's amazing about that? You didn't see, Marianne, you didn't see Republicans, when Barack Obama, especially in the second term, say, you know what, we're worried about our religion, we're worried about Catholics, we're worried about Christians in the Middle East. We really, I mean, this is something that so many people said, and I'll let you answer it, David, you know, that was Soros funded.
Well, much of the divisive language, or what they believe was divisive language, that they said they could never vote for Trump because of the way he said things. And you look at some of the signs that were out there today.
The signs
you listen to what Madonna said out there today.
That was profanity. We couldn't even film it.
That's right.
I was cursed at, Marianne. The language was stuff that and you know what, I'm not, you know, I've been around. But this stuff was tough language.
Well, I certainly didn't see any of that here.
You didn't? You're in Boston. Well, maybe Boston is just more virginal than Washington.
Very peaceful, very well organized, very well done.
What we expect, real fast, 30 seconds. What are we going to see this week, Marianne?
Well, I think you're going to see, again, a flurry of executive orders from Donald Trump. I also think you're going to see maybe a trade deal announcing the fact that Theresa May is coming here and maybe working out a deal with her, and perhaps another foreign policy surprise down the road.
All right, the UK. What do you think, David?
I think you're going to see some cabinet nominees get confirmed, and I think out of the White House, you're going to continue to see him pushing to his tax reform ideas, his regulation ideas, and I think you'll see him visit the key agencies like State and Treasury and Commerce, all focused on his big message, economic and personal security.
All right, Marianne and David, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Judge.
And next, thank you. Talk about star power. He was afraid to talk.
Judges scare me, I have to tell you.
He was afraid to talk to me. But I went one-on-one with Hollywood actor and Donald Trump supporter Jon Voight here in Washington. And later, you never know who you'll run into at an inauguration. I caught up yesterday with well-known Trump supporter and longtime actor Jon Voight. Take a look.
Let me ask you a serious question.
All right.
Do you feel that you had a role to play in this new changing of the American landscape?
I think many of us, certainly you, and many people had a lot to do with it. But when you look at the landscape of all of America, it's a relatively few people that really made a great difference to, you know, to encourage, inspire, keep us all going. I'm very shortly going to go upstairs from this place and introduce Rudy Giuliani. Now, Rudy, I remember in difficult times, you know, of the campaign, when so many people on the other side were reporting tremendous bad numbers from the polls, you know, and all of this. And it seemed like things were going awry. And at those times, it seems like every time that there was a test for me, and of course, you were so positive and so remarkable in your energy. You just had that naturally, but you have this positive, great energy that keeps everybody up, and Rudy does too. And in those moments, I keyed on you guys, and you gave me spirit to go the next mile, you know. So there's a lot of people that really helped each other, and then as our president says, as our President Trump says, he said this is a movement. So this was a lot of people all throughout the country.
All right, so here we are on the eve of a day that is almost hard to believe is here, but it's here.
Yeah.
And so what do you wish for in the first 100 days?
Well, I have to say that I'm very proud of the way Donald Trump has proceeded from the first moment of his victory in the election right to the present time. I think he's done more, you know, he's worked harder, put in more longer hours, and accomplished more than any other president that, in my memory, and I was born in 1938, don't tell anybody. And, but you know, I've never seen any energy like this in some ways. And he has this metabolism. He sleeps very...
I know, he sleeps like 3 hours a night.
And then, I saw him on the campaign, and I would see him at the end of a day in California after he'd made the stop in Wisconsin and the stop in Texas, and then he's up there. And he was as fresh as he was in the early part of the morning, you know. So, so we have this tremendous energy, you know. And I'm very impressed with what he's accomplished, and I'm very impressed with the cabinet he's put together. And I said it rivals the great cabinets of our country's history, and maybe even the brilliant first cabinet of our founders. These guys are quite special.
And last question. Did you experience any pushback in L.A.?
Well, of course, you can see all across the country. There's, you know, people on the other side. They're very forceful and sometimes unpleasant. But
in what way?
That's normal. Listen.
But we didn't do that. We didn't do that.
Yes, that's right. I think that's right. I mean, when they try to depict people as in the way they describe them, and then you see the way they responded to things and the way the Republican side responded, we seemed a bit, you know, we seemed to have more grace.
Well, you know, and speaking of grace, let me say how much I appreciate your being graceful and talking to us on this moment tonight.
You're the greatest. You know what when I saw Jeanine? When I say she's tracked me down, I've seen her at different places, and I've always been very impressed. But I'm going to tell you honestly, and this is honest.
Go ahead. Just between us.
I'm scared of her. You know, I'm scared of her. I don't know. If I get in and, you know, I don't know what she's going to say to me. I don't know, because judges scare me, I have to tell you. But female judges really scare me.
Thank you, John.
But beautiful people like Jeanine, you know,
Thank you.
they really, really scare me.
John, and Ray Donovan? Is it Ray Donovan? You scare me.
See Ray Donovan? I hit the inaugural parade yesterday for some street justice, and you won't want to miss